Well, it's a beautiful day, and it's really nice to be out of the studio. I mean, we like working in there and everything, but once in a while it's nice to get outside. Can't believe it. So pretty. Well, today we're going to talk about leadership styles. And there's three main ones, and they kind of fit into every situation in your life that you're going to come across. Trust me, there's a lot more than three, but these are the three we're going to cover, and we're going to relate them to leaders in the United States Navy, all the armed forces, but this applies to everybody. I'm sure there's people at IBM, like these people that I'm going to talk to you about today, and all throughout the gambit. You have to work with these people. They're a leader for a reason. And so you have to understand how they operate. The first guy I'm going to talk about is our surface officers in the United States Navy. Now remember, they're not all. This doesn't mean every single one operates like this, but this is kind of how they operate. They want to follow the leadership style of Attila the Hun. All they need is one head on a stick, and everybody's going to fall in line. And you know, they're dealing with lots and lots of people, huge ships, machinery, all these kinds of things. They don't have time for people to say, what? How come? Why? You got to do it. You got to do what you're told and get it done. Now, when you're a young person and you report to that ship, let's say you're a young officer, a young leader, they're going to give you a plate and they're going to put a steak on it. And then they're going to put a big baked potato on it. And they're going to say, hey, eat your steak and eat your baked potato. And if you can't eat your steak and your baked potato, they're going to give you another steak. What does that mean? They're going to give you more work to do. And you're either going to get it done or you're not. A lot of people get out of the Navy pretty quickly because they can't get their work done that much. You got to be tough with these surface guys. I worked for a guy one time. He was great. He was a great man. But when he went like this, somebody was going down. It was a body language thing that I saw. I was his command master chief, and he's the captain, but we'd have these meetings every night. And there'd be about 10 commanders in there. And inevitably, somewhere along the line of that meeting, he'd go like this. And I knew somebody was going down. And I asked him one day, I said, Captain, I really don't like being in these meetings. He says, I want you in these meetings. I want everybody to know I don't treat anybody any different. Officer enlisted. You're going to do your job. You're going to work hard. You're not going to ask any questions. We're going to get it done. Well, one day he asked me, he said, Master Chief, I want you to write me up a mentorship instruction. Well, this is like 1998. I never even heard of mentorship, let alone proteges. And he asked me to write this instruction. I'm like, yeah, I'll blow that off. And I blew it off. And then one day he sent me a little email. All it said was, see me. And I go up to his stateroom, say, what's going on, Captain? He goes, how's the mentorship instruction? I need to get hot. You do. So I got together with 5 really smart people, and we laid out this whole plan about when you come to the ship and you're going to get a sponsor, and their job is to get you qualified and all these things, mentorship and proteges. And I brought it up to him, and he loved it. He goes, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, okay. He sends it to Washington. He sends it to the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, who calls me up and adopts 80% of my instruction for the whole Navy. I couldn't believe it. And I think parts of it is probably still in use today. But of course, this is many years ago. So that's their kind of leadership style. It's tough. Next one I want to talk about is the submariners. Now, the submariners their officers are all nuclear trained, except maybe for the supply officer or something. So they go to school for 2 years to learn how to operate the plant, because you don't mess with the plant. These guys are tough too, but they're really, really smart. And I began working for this one guy, a commander. And I'd been there about 2 weeks, and the ship had been in the shipyard for 2 years, which means it sits next to the pier for 2 years, doesn't go anywhere. And now it's all fixed, and the crew doesn't want to go. Well, that's too bad. That's why they built these things, so you can go underwater and take care of America. But I've been walking around as the chief of the boat. I'm a little guy, brand new, and they're all down in the dumps. They're all kicking the can, and I'm like, I'm going to go see the captain. So I said, hey, Captain, you got a minute? He goes, yeah, Cobb, what do you need? And I go into his stateroom, and I said, well, sir, morale is at a new... He says, don't you ever say the M word again, because nobody's ever said morale's at a new high. And then he says, well, what do you think we need to do, Cobb? I said, well, sir, I think maybe we could like have a picnic. He looks at me, a picnic? He says, I think you need to do your job. I think you need to work them harder. So they forget about that shipyard, and they're proud to be under our command. And you know what I did? I worked them like dogs for 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, we won every award that any command could ever get. And then you know what? We had a picnic. The next one I want to talk about is the air guys. Now the air guys are great. Pilots. You know what a pilot wants to do? One thing, fly an airplane. And all the other stuff is minor to them. It's that airplane, baby. Well, as officers, they don't get to fly too much after like their lieutenant commander, and probably even less as a commander. But boy, do they have leadership styles. And in most times, they're a lot of fun to work with. They got a sense of humor. They like to do things, see things. I worked for the greatest pilot ever. This guy's name was P.A. Moore, God rest his soul. Great man. And he was in charge of this huge communication place. Huge communication station in Naples, and I'm the second guy with him. I'm the command master chief. Well, he knows a little bit about communications, and I know even less, but we really don't know a lot. But all the people that work there, that's their whole lives. They've been in communications in the Navy forever. They know everything. But guess what? You don't have to know anything about it. You don't have to know that much about it to lead them in the proper direction. You know, there's a guy out here, he's in charge of, let's just throw it out, you know, IBM or something. He didn't work at IBM his whole life. He was a great leader somewhere else, maybe, I don't know, Walmart. But it's all about their leadership styles. You can be a leader and not have to know that much about whatever else is going on, because people look to you for direction. Well, this one particular time, we were moving our command. So we're going to turn the switch off here to the command, and we're going to move it over here and turn the switch back on. Now, while we turn the switch off, this other command in Pearl Harbor has to take care of all the communications for the entire world, while we're trying to get our switch turned on over here so we can take our half of the world back. And we're in this big meeting, me and Captain Moore, we're in this meeting. And he's sitting up there, and I'm sitting on the other side of the table, and these 10 people are briefing us. Okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do this. And he's nodding his head, and I'm looking at him going, I know he has no clue what they're talking about. And he even asked a question. That was the best. He even asked a question. It was a pretty softball, but you know, they answered it and all that. Well, during the whole meeting, and this is something you have to remember about being a leader, is you got to pay attention. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Everybody always tells you that, but y'all got 2 eyes. But at this meeting, I'm paying a lot of attention. And this one guy gets up and he goes, well, I'll be a lot happier when the Damamucks are reconnected and hooked up and tested satisfactory. Now, I have no idea what he's talking about. I never even heard of this before. But I thought, wow, that sounded pretty cool. And then the meeting gets over. And the captain, he looks at me, he goes, okay, thank you everybody for your input and what we're going to do. And then he goes, Master Chief, what do you think? I look at him like, did you really just ask me that question in front of 20 people knowing I don't know anything? That's what I'm thinking. But I'm not going to be embarrassed. I said, well, sir, you know, I'm really going to feel good about myself once those Damamucks are reconnected and tested satisfactory. He goes, yeah, me too. And then we walk out and I tap him on the shoulder. Did you really have to do that, Captain? He goes, hey, you did pretty well. Well, those are 3 examples of leadership styles that are out there in every organization. Your job is to work with them, figure them out. Do what you got to do, make sure it happens, do it to the best of your ability. And to be a leader, you got to be a good follower.